Good morning, traders. Chris Buss here with Traders Profit Compass with your morning look at markets for Friday the 13th. Okay, it's 6 a.m. as I'm starting the video, taking a quick look at futures. Had some quiet overnight sessions this week, not a lot happening. So most everything I see is flat, except for gold is up 0.4%. Over on the macro side today, pretty quiet as well. We've got import-export prices at 8:30, and then University of Michigan sentiment at 10 a.m. Just as a reminder, being Friday, that means it's Lotto Friday, right? If you're into that sort of thing, if you can catch a runner on a Friday, you can do pretty well on that. Just remember, lottery tickets, most of them end up being torn up and thrown on the ground. Don't go out on a limb. Only trade with monies you're happy taking a zero on, because that happens sometimes with weekly options, or I should say a lot of the time, especially when you're buying something that's going to expire in 6 hours. You've got to have something that's really moving, or else the time decay is really going to eat you up. So, but if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. Also, we've got weekly option expiration. Make sure you go through all your holdings today and make sure you don't have anything, that might expire today that you haven't taken care of, and then make a decision whether you want to, roll it or just close it out. And also, we've got August expiration next week as well. That'll be a pretty big one right in front of Jackson Hole, which I think is, if I'm not mistaken, the following week. So 2 weeks out for Jackson Hole. So a few things going on. We just keep grinding higher, and we haven't talked about it a lot, but I wanted to bring the VIX into focus. Not too long ago, we were at 25, and now they've slammed volatility all the way back down to support right down here around 15.5. And I mean, if you go back in time, we had this little period here in late June, early July where they, pushed it down into the 14s. But you can see that this 15.5 has served as a pretty good low watermark for the VIX. And so, once you're at support, there's only one way to go, and that's back up again. And usually that means, if VIX is rising, we've got some turbulence in equities. So make sure your allocation, review, how far out you are in terms of exposure. Probably wouldn't be a bad time to lay on some protection. Whether that's short term or longer term, you'll have to decide that. Or, one thing for sure is if you've got embedded gains in your option positions, probably wouldn't be a bad time to make sure you've rolled your strikes up, so at least you're at the money. I'd hate to see any kind of wobble. This VIX is going to go up. I mean, it has to. We're at support. And, if we were to get a breakout here at, say, 16.5, 17, then you're looking at 18 and possibly 20. I'm not trying to be a doomsday guy, but we're at support on the VIX. So take that factoid and put it into your mix. As to how much exposure you want to be out there on the long side. And actually, what I've started doing, and you've noticed this in the last few times, in the last few videos, giving you levels on the short side. I got one set up here today on Micron that would, do well in a downdraft. It's always nice to have some shorts, at least, lined up, and alarmed in your system, so that if we do get a a wobble or some corrective activity, that you'll have some bullets in the chamber on the short side, so that you can at least balance out whatever long-term holds you want to have on your long exposure. So that's the VIX. I did look at rates. Rates went up a little bit yesterday, but nothing really notable. Our momentum oscillators are right in the middle of the range, so there's no real predictive value in that. Breadth is right in that percent over 50 is right in that 55 range, so no real changes there. So for the sake of time, I'm just going to skip those today, and then we'll pick that up next week when we start getting some movement. Equal weight SPY didn't really do anything yesterday, but it is still walking the 8 EMA, and it's hard to get too bearish when you're in that mode of walking up the short-term moving averages. So that looks good. Same thing with SPY. We just keep grinding higher. I've got a new level here for you as support, and that's 444. You drop down below 444, probably going to come into the midpoint of our channel. And as we've been discussing, for the last however many weeks, that's a real good trend line to want to hold, because once you break below the midpoint, the target doesn't mean you get there, but the target automatically becomes the low side of the channel. Now there's some support layers in between 442 and 440 that will be there and possibly arrest any decline. Like back here, we lost the midpoint, came in to 436, where it bounced and went up. But of course, those levels are getting farther and farther away. So you come back into 436, then you actually have a sell signal based on the 2-hour chart of breaking below trend. So anyhow, you've got the levels there. 444, 443 is the midpoint, 442 is the first level below. Here on the 30-minute chart, you see how we've kind of gone straight up here in the last couple of days. Actually, this was just yesterday. This action, really kind of a steady grind up all day, but you can see any kind of pullback to this trend line would be back in that 444 area that we showed on the other chart. Qs had a decent day yesterday. Found support after it tried to break down on that first candle down below 365, but it recovered it and then had a very nice move right back up to 367 and actually moved above that. I think today 367 is going to be your pivot on the Qs, with that first level of overhead resistance coming in around 368.75. Actually, I've got it here. I would move that up, actually. 368.50, 368.75 is going to be your first level. And then 370 would be up at the prior high. That would be your kind of like your outside target for today. I was quite, whenever you think something's going to happen, it's not going to happen. I thought the FATMAAN names were kind of laying dormant for a while, and some of them really woke up yesterday. And so important to keep an open mind, because as soon as you start thinking about scenarios, and if you lock into one, then you kind of miss the move. So anyhow, we broke that trend line that we had in yesterday, came up and spent a lot of time right under 367, and then we kind of broke above there. So decent little day. IWM small caps, I still think you want to wait until you get that 224 breakout to really commit to IWM. I think once you get that 224 breakout, when and if it ever comes, then you've got some running room up towards 230 on a measured move basis. But for today, I think it's just got to hold this 222.50 level, which is the bottom side of the channel and this lateral support level. And if you get a break below and drop out of this channel and down below 222.50, I think you could come down to 220 here. So keep that in mind if you're doing any kind of intraday active trading. That might be a good short setup if there's some kind of wobble today. So on the high side, 224. I think it's really got to hold 222.50 on the low side. You can see that better here. Come back in. You see that this 221.50 has been a little level of support here on the 30-minute chart. And then you've got your breakout at 224 and longer term support down here at 218. Facebook came right into 358 yesterday, undercut it, reached down for the trend line, tagged it, and then steady grind up the rest of the day. I still think to get a more powerful move, it's got to break above 364, take out this level here, break into the open gap, and then try to get a gap fill up to 373. I would just use this trend line here as your support level. There's not a lot going on in here as far as intermediate levels go. So I would use the trend line as support on any kind of pullback. Apple had a real nice day yesterday. I was kind of surprised after this real choppy action, but it opened up strong right out of the gate. Your buy signal was on a recapture of 346. That opened up, 146.50 was your buy signal. That opened up the next level higher, which was 147.50. And then that was another chance to buy. And then it moved up the balance of the day. Now this 149.50, a break above would put that in blue sky territory. And we've got a number of these coming up. I think we'll see Microsoft and Google attacking their all-time highs. So even if you haven't bought or traded or anything in here, you get a breakout to fresh highs. I think that's something that you got to buy. And then you've got a beautiful place for a stop right here, just below 149.50. And then, if there's some kind of big move, you'll already be in with a long against the all-time high. I always think that's a very objective play when you've got something approaching its all-time high. Tesla, very interesting action yesterday. Had this reach down to fill this upper gap, and then it stopped right at 700 and bounced all the way up, and now is attacking this upper gap here between 720 and 735. So that might be a lottery candidate today. If you can get something against 720 and get a move up to 735 or higher today, that might be an interesting trade. Microsoft rocketed off of this 286.50 level.
and took out this trend line and then took out this 288 level. And that was both a logical and very objective level to buy. You broke the downtrend line. That's an opportunity. But I think the real one was 288. Why? Because all of this support was right here, which then was resistance over here at 288. And once you broke 288, it was a clear path to 290. And here again, we've got blue sky territory on Microsoft above 290. You get a breakout above 290, I think you got to buy that with a stop just below and see if this thing can run a little bit. Now, if we go back, just if we were to take this trading range, let's say from 290 to 285, we had a lot of stuff in here, got all this trading. So from 290 to 285, if we call that the trading range, then our target becomes 295. $5 trading range added onto the breakout gives you 295. So, that would be a nice trade just in and of itself. Amazon, we had the breakdown from 3,300, came down in here, found a little level at 3,280, and then popped up to 3,300 again. So if it can make a definitive move above 3,300, I think you can put 3,375 as your first target. And then, of course, if you break into the gap, we've got all these intermediate levels that you can focus on as intermediate targets on the way to a gap fill, if it can get that going. Google, 27.15, we had marked as support. And you can see that price came right into that level and undercut it, came back up and recaptured it and progressed farther the rest of the day. And so now we've got this all-time high here at 27.60 as a level today. And again, if it takes that out, we're in blue sky territory. So I would buy that. And again, let's look at the trading levels. We've got 27.60 to 26, let's call it 26.90. So what is that? $70? Is that right? 27.60 to 26.90? Yeah, $70. So a breakout here would put you up in the low 2,800 area. So, that would be a good anchor point if you broke into blue sky territory and set your stop just below. And like I said, I think, as far as the Qs go, we got Apple near the highs. We got Microsoft about to break out. You get a breakout in Google, and you get Amazon working into that gap, and you got Facebook close to a big gap. There could be some fireworks in the Qs if all the stars align, and that may come today or next week or never. But we do have some very objective levels that I think you, at a minimum, need to have alarmed. And usually how it goes, you'll get hit with all of them, within 5 minutes, the way it goes. You'll have Google fire, you'll have Amazon fire, you'll have Apple breaking out, you'll have Microsoft breaking out. That's usually how it goes. So get in your mind not only the ones you want to focus on, but the ones you want to buy for a longer term kind of play on a breakout to blue sky. You don't want to be kind of flustered in that moment. And it's easy to do, believe me, I've been there. When you get all these alarms firing on top of one another, it's nice to have a little notebook piece of paper there saying, okay, I want Microsoft, and I want Apple, and I want Facebook, and that's it. I don't want to mess with Amazon. I don't want to mess with Google. I don't want to mess with Netflix. So have your own particular game plan ready to go when and if we get all these breakouts in the mega cap tech arena. Netflix, not as constructive as the other names. Why? Well, we had this break above 515, and it looked like we were on our way, and then it has rolled back over to the lows here at 507.50. And if this has, any kind of turbulence, I think you're going to come down here to 500 right away. And if things fall apart, then your target down below would be 485. Just hypotheticals. As long as it holds 508, that's fine. 515 is your upside target, and then 522. Semiconductors had a hard day. They have not been cooperating. As you can see, we had that nice high up here, started bleeding out, and then it accelerated to the downside. Now, yesterday, Micron had a bad day, and we're going to look at that chart in a second here. But remember, our primary breakout was 258. And then we had this second level at 262. Remember, we had some false breakouts back here where it came up to 262 and then rolled over. So I think a recapture of 262 would be important. You could get a move up to 265 where you've got this next level of resistance and the downtrend line. But if we continue to slide on the semis, I think 258 is going to be really, really important to hold. Why? Because that was our primary breakout zone from a big consolidation, a $35 consolidation. So you don't want price to come back into that range. But here's the deal. And we've talked about this in prior videos. Breakout, come back to 258 for a back test of the breakout. Happens all the time. It's very common. You get a pull into 258. I think that's a very objective place to get longer term, right? Because you had the big breakout and now you've back tested it. Technical check mark. If it holds, that's in the bull's favor. So you could get long against 258 with a stop just below and then look for a reacceleration higher. And hey, if you don't get it, you got a paper cut. And then you got to look to the downside because, as we always say, you come back into a big trading range, your target becomes the bottom of that range, and that bottom is way down there. I'm not going to go through it now, but if you've been following along for any length of time, it's way down there. So we're at a critical spot here. It either comes into 258 and holds, or it doesn't, or we could see this turn around today, recapture 262, run up to 265 and higher. So here's that Micron chart that I found very interesting. Coming up to a really key level right here, and you can call it 68 or you can call it 68.50. Excuse me. I don't think it makes much difference. But look at this big void here that goes all the way down to 52. That's, what is that? $15, $16. Almost no trading in this area. You can see the volume over price bars, how they, come out here. We've had a lot of trading between 68 and 95, with most of it coming right here at the, around 82. But if it loses 68, I don't think anybody's going to be home down here. That's why I like seeing these voids on short setups, because it can really accelerate to the downside. And, I don't think there's going to be many people excited to jump in and try and save it, because if this breaks, there's going to be a lot of other stuff going on as well. So I think that's a important level to alarm. And even, you can treat this as a bracket trade as well, that, if you're a bull and you want to get long against that level, that's fine. And you can get a move back up to 72 and come up and fill the gap to 74.50. That's perfectly fine as well. There was a lot of option activity yesterday on bearish activity on the name, but support is support until it's broken. Just because somebody's buying puts for down here, that doesn't make them right. It can give you an idea on which way people are leaning, but I don't like to get short in that situation until the thing breaks. So, but I think this is a really nice, clean, short setup. There's not a lot of, and I don't think this support is particularly strong. All we've got is this little area right here. So it's not like we've come down and tagged that 20 times. It was right here, and now we're right back again. So that level, in my mind, is not very strong. So please put yourself an alarm there. Here's DraftKings making a move to recapture this 55. I think that's a worthwhile long. Again, we've got a relative void here in the volume over price profile. So you get a break above 55. I think it could go pretty fast up to 59 here in the next, who knows how long, a week, a few days. I think this is a good level to alarm, this 55. You get a breakout above, I like that as a long. And then I want to wrap up with commodities. We had a breakout in corn yesterday. Now it popped up a lot higher and pulled back a little bit. But we do have this breakout, and you can see all the exponential moving averages all compressed and now acting as support. So I like corn to move up towards 23 and the top of the box. We talked about sugar the other day. We had this consolidation. We had a breakout and a back test, and it hasn't looked back. So I think let's look at the weekly here. So yeah, our next target is going to be $10, but then after 10, it could go really fast to 12. So if you're interested in looking at sugar, it's going to be a really important place to watch over the next couple of days. And if you wanted to get long, you could get long, say, against 9, and then go for 10, and then 12. You can see it's been on a strong trend.
And here's coffee on the weekly. We talked about this early, either over the weekend or early in the week, where we talked about this fib retracement, pull back into 50, which was the high back in 2018. We've gotten a nice lift here. And so now I think, well, the door is certainly open for a move back up to 57, 58. And you've got a good place for, if you got in that trade, to have your stop against like 49. And so this trade is working out really, really well. If you're not in, I don't think you can buy it here, but you can certainly watch it. And if you got to pull back into 50 again, I think you buy it there, because that would, again, give you another bite at the apple right here at 50 in support. So that's all I've got for you this morning. If you're new to the channel, I really appreciate your time and paying me a visit. I hope you appreciate the analysis, and I hope you can tell that if you can lean on my levels and come to trust them, and then solely focus on your execution, I think you're going to become a better trader, and I think you'll become a better technician as well. Just listening to the commentary, watching me break down the price action. Trading is tough, and I think it all starts with having levels that you can trust and shoot against in a very objective way. I think that'll help your trading. So if you agree, please hit the subscribe button and the alarm bell, then jump over in the show notes, drop in your email on the blog site, and then you'll get all my content morning, noon, and night. Be glad to have you be part of the team. You'll also get an invite to the trading room. We've got a lot of new additions lately, a lot of sharp traders, a lot of good ideas, a lot of camaraderie as well. So I think that's important as we learn to get better together and become better traders. And of course, longtime listeners, I really appreciate your support and you passing the link along to your social and trading circles. I really appreciate that. So have a good Friday of trading, and I'm sure I'll talk to you either later in the day or over the weekend with my observations. So have a good trading day, and talk to you next time.